So, I've been putting off reviewing this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I was trying to track down Werewolf, an awesome sounding Polish film whereupon a group of children liberated from a Nazi concentration camp have to overcome hunger, thirst and vicious dogs in an abandoned mansion surrounded by the forest, which sounded fascinating, and shockingly for 2019 appeared not to be based off of a comic book. But I wasn't able to find a screening that worked, so I found myself staring down the barrel of a screening of Joker, the 830-second comic book film that I think I've seen this year. It's directed by the guy who also directed the Hangover trilogy, and it's gotten so much more attention and think pieces than it deserves. I mean, for all the people complaining about having the Joker without Batman, you do remember that Gotham has only just finished being a thing, right? That was literally a whole TV show about Batman's villains, but without Batman. Besides, the Waynes get shoehorned in anyway when they could and indeed should have been off-screen characters. Then there are complaints about all the disturbing violence. Now, maybe I've seen too many over-the-top films, but I found the violence to be pretty tame for what the film could have done. And indeed the horrifying violence that the Joker is known for. I mean, it isn't glamorized in any way, and towards the end there's a scene that could have been more shocking if the film had gone as far as it could, and indeed should have. Personally, I was more disturbed by the scene in last year's Teen Titans Go to the Movies where our heroes go back in time and literally shove the Waynes down crime alley to their deaths. I mean, for a guy who's only made comedies before, this is a really good first try at making an adult serious film of the type that got made in the 80s before it became impossible to get anything made that isn't a reboot or based off of a comic book.
And every non-MCU filmmaker.
You can be the smartest guy in the room, the most qualified, and no one cares. Unless you're flying around with a cape or shooting lasers from your hands, no one will even listen.
Yeah, this isn't your standard superhero film, it's slow, showing us how a man, played amazingly by an almost certain to be nominated for but not to win an Oscar, Joaquin Phoenix, who loses what little he has, faces dark revelations from his past, gets failed by the mental health system, then accidentally inspires some kind of protest against the rich. One of his terrible stand-up gigs goes viral, which did not happen in the film setting of the 80s, lending him a moment in the spotlight, and he has some sort of relationship trouble with all the women in his life. Now, if that sounds like a lot to cram into a film with a 122-minute runtime, then you'd be right. It's also why the film came across to me as simply unfocused. You could have removed any of the plot threads, and I think it would have been a better, tighter experience. Look, I love Taxi Driver as much as anyone, but you can't just swap out Travis Bickle with a clown and think you've made the modern-day version of a classic. Oh, one quick note. A fairly pivotal scene towards the end features a song by Gary Glitter, a convicted pedophile who is currently at Her Majesty's pleasure, and as a result of this film stands to possibly make hundreds of thousands of pounds, which I find completely unforgivable. 2 seconds on Google could have prevented this, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Back to Joker, and I find that this film looks great. It's dark and moody and just has this sense of unrelenting misery and pressure as Flex support network is picked apart piece by piece. But to me, after the first violent scene, the film just doesn't quite seem to know what to do with itself. I mean, Joker has such little faith in itself that our lead at the end delivers a monologue on the moral of the film that we just watched, as though it's a damn Saturday morning cartoon. If you have that little faith that your film has gotten its point across, then just rewrite your film. Joker is such a disappointment that I barely know where to start. Yes, Phoenix is amazing, but laying him aside, we find a very 2019 film in 1980s wrapping. It's slow and yet overstuffed. It needed streamlining and then to go further with what it had. If you want to make a disturbing film, then make a disturbing film. Don't just try and remake Taxi Driver because that's not going to work for you. I don't have an issue with the pacing or the tone, but I would have made it more violent and actually given it something to say. The ingredients are here for something dark and disturbing as an ordinary man through a run of bad luck turns into one of the most violent villains in comic book history, but that's not this film. Oh, and get rid of the damn Waynes. No, not like that! Which is a shame. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to reimagine other classic films as origin stories. The Wizard of Doom, Gone with the Magneto, Some Like It Dark, Side. But this film, just skip it. But what do you guys think? And which classic film would you remake as a supervillain origin story? Comment below, let me know. I'm Daniel, it's been a dunking. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe.